welcome to the CTF Underground Podcast, CTF All Site. Now your host, my boy, from the hood, Alb and Money and the Lose. Let's go. Goal, 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 goal. Hola y bienvenido al Barca Subterráneo. They capture the flag. Todo CTF todo el tiempo. Démosle la bienvenida a sus anfitriones, Alberto y Angelos.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of CTF Underground. My name's Alb, and hosting with me once again, we got Kelby. How's it going, brother?
No, it's Friday night. There's nowhere I'd rather be.
And it's not 1 a.m., so that's a good sign for things to come. So, guys, we haven't really done any podcasts in the last week or two due to illness. Myself and Kelby have been recently dying and currently still are dying, so it's probably our last podcast. But in case you're wondering where it's been, I know some people have messaged in the chat, the whole 4 viewers we have, asking where it's been or where it's going to be. That's what's going on. So if we cough or sound like we're dying during this, we apologize. But yeah, nonetheless, we're here. Week 2 has been completed in DL3, and we're doing our second podcast. So we're going to try to do at least one more for you guys for the season, hopefully 2, one after week 3, and then a follow-up of the playoffs. And a recap. So, as you guys all know, I am a captain and playing in this league. So, same gist as kind of episode 1 where I didn't give input or talk about anything. We brought Herthbul in, so we're going to bring him back again, unfortunately, to kill the last 10% of subscribers we have. So, everybody, welcome Herth. How's it going, Herth?
I'm doing great, and I'm going to tell you, I'm really looking forward to this being y'all's final podcast. So I'll pick it up from here with Joe for next week. The subscriber rate will go through the roof.
We both hope so. Also, if I'd known Herth was going to be here, I wouldn't have signed up for this.
So Herth said he messaged me and he really wanted to redeem himself for the lack of subscribers that we have now. So hopefully you guys hit that subscribe button for him, make him feel good about this.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. It's too early. Albert, can we reschedule for like 3 hours from now, please?
Yeah, it's real early, so we might be thrown off a little bit. I got energy tonight, so it might be different.
Oh.
All right, so getting into it, like I said, we've already completed week 1 and week 2. Week 3 happens in 2 days from now. I'm going to try to release this tomorrow, so Saturday for you guys, so a day before week 3. So if you're listening to this now, it's probably right before week 3 games start, so keep that in mind. Week 1 and 2 have been completed, and if you guys look at the screen right now, you can see winners, time, MVP of each game. With that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Kelby now and Herth, and they're going to run through all of it and give you their opinions on stuff. Again, I'm not going to say too much where I'm playing and a captain, but they'll give the input and the breakdowns for you guys. So Kelby, take it away.
Yeah, I'll say plenty of bad things about the games, especially Albert's team. But we'll kind of go in this fixed order. I'll kind of give a recap of them, and then Herth and I'll banter back and forth about why I'm right and he's wrong about it. So, straight from the top in week 1. And apologies, again, this was 2 weeks ago, so maybe most of the 3 people listening forgot about it. But the season kind of launched at Stonecutters at Haters. This was a quote-unquote depth game. So for those unaware, there has been like a captain's handshake prior to the season that says, hey, let's try to make sure everyone gets a chance to play. And when we do it, don't make it too lopsided. So first of all, I think that is a good thing to implement. I would agree with some of the frustration that's boiled up over the first 2 weeks, though, that maybe it was implemented a little bit too rushed, where there's not a great solution for it, where some teams are like, oh, I'm playing, my power ranking 6 out of 10. You're playing your 4 out of 10. This is awful. So I think it's a step in the right direction, but this being the first league season that really implemented it, it's not perfect yet. So there's room to improve there. But on the stepped game, this was actually cool. We got to see Loaf Pincher at Medic. Orr and Head were playing on Matt's team, the Stonecutters. And then on Bonds' team, Haters, we had Game Freak in, Infinite, who may or may not have actually been Death. Maybe he's a starting NG. We don't know yet. Dark Prince and Mushberg. And these were guys that Herth and I kind of went after, to be honest, in the player ranking. But I tell you what, they put it together attacking A6. And we'll talk about the base balance a little bit when we get to the end of the matches. But this kind of underrated offense, which we were just straight up wrong about, they got it together quickly. They took down a decent looking defense at A6 very early. Like they got the pressure on them. They took over with swings, and the team at A6 really didn't recover. At some point, Infinite swung. Mixum had built an RT right in the flag room. I love this moment. I was hoping to see it in another game. Infinite saw it, and I swear within like 1.5 seconds, he reprogrammed it.
That RT got absolutely 0 rockets off for the home team.
I don't think it was even homing on an enemy by the time Infinite stole it. And I think just the chaos of reprogram, which I think is bugged in this version of Infantry, so it's a little iffy that people are using it because it doesn't always work on the reprogram. But, whatever the case, I'd love to see it. I think that kind of chaos is cool, and that ended the game, essentially. They got to 10-man D at F5, which used to be F4, popular outdoor version of A6. There were some sloppy reps and a bad defensive demo, which allowed an abort, but after that, Taters kind of closed it out. So, I mean, with DP and Mushberg, I looked at this game at the beginning, Herth, and I was like, yeah, this offense ain't going to do anything. But I don't know, man. Like 4 minutes into the game, they were already killing turrets. So I don't know if you saw it any differently. What did you think?
No, I basically completely agree. And again, it's a depth game. So on Matt's side with Stonecutters, you're right. They're not playing people like Axie or their star DMs to really give them the pressure that they need at a D-heavy base. So as they're not be able to clear the offense, DP, Mushberg, and the rest, they can just keep that pressure up and eventually just completely erode the defense at A7. It was a great game to see, though. For a depth game, I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I'll put a quick correction in there. This is just me being a nerd. I think Axie did play that game. I think they had like 3 defensive starters at A6. Now, they did have Loaf Pincher Medic, and I don't know if they had any funny sound bites from him, but there's always something with that guy. But I mean, it was impressive for DP and Mushberg. I know Axie was there because I remember thinking, wow, they're just mowing through Axie, and I die to this guy all the time. But maybe just having some of the GL come his way, that's kind of staggering these heavies, as we'll talk about. But yeah, I mean, it was a good job. Shout out to the depth squad from Haters. Took down Matt's team. Of course, you don't feel great about it because it's Matt, and he's pretty easy to beat, as most teams know at this point, but good job anyways. That was the first game that kicked off the league. Following that, we then had Bonza Squad Haters at Black Sheep. Black Sheep is Smoka Squad / Kev Shadow Council Squad. Joe's done a lot of coordinating for the squad and whatnot. This was a more classic A6 at D6 game. Pretty much starting lineups. I think they were missing Sabotage that week, so they had Chev Nasty playing heavy attacking A6. I don't think Mites was there either. I think Jouet was the third imp that paired up with Joe and Jouet, or Joe and Bell. But yep, aside from that, Black Sheep, as we knew going into the league, they would have a very strong power offense. They've got 2 of what we consider just the best fighters in the game. And this is like classic Gnostic. You've just got people that understand damage windows and keeping their character strength at high. So Salve and Smoka really working early at A6. Additionally, they have a scary rush offense. So teams are thinking like we have to go long base because we don't want to play a short base against Smoka's JT, having seen that almost regardless of who he's surrounded by, he can quote unquote fluke flag something. That's why we're not seeing a lot of teams take D6 when there's a JT threat on the other side. So yeah, I mean, they went into A6 and honestly, they just rolled it. I almost felt bad for Haters because anytime they pushed the base down, within 30 to 45 seconds, they were back under their turrets taking heavy pressure. It really just outclassed them at the boxes. I talk about boxes a lot, like especially with power offense. These games are decided at the boxes, and Salve and Smoka decidedly won this game. They eventually got the flags out. Pretty straightforward defense at D6 and held on for the win. Anything I missed on that one, Herth?
No, you've covered it pretty well. One thing I would like to add, though, is, and you covered on it a little bit, a lot of these teams now, other than Black Sheep, they're playing heavy bases because, well, and Albert Squad has the luxury of kind of swapping whether they play 3DM or a heavy base due to designer, or, they've got CT, Jaguar, Poly, Wolven on their side. Yep. But Black Sheep specifically plays 3DM. And for the majority of the PL history, heavy bases have always been a thing. So, and Sav and Smoka kind of grew up in that. So attacking heavy bases, there's a lot more history there and knowledge and experience. So them attacking with all that experience into Haters, it was just going to be a matter of time before they fell.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk more about Black Sheep's offense and other games at heavy bases that we saw in week 2, but let's finish up week 1. We wrapped up the week with Coerce at Stonecutters. This was an A5 at F5 game. This was pretty close to full lineups for both teams. Stonecutters had the trickle-down effect on supports, and I complained about this with Axis' team last season. Unfortunately, it struck them again week 1, where suddenly they didn't have Captain Axe, I think. So they didn't have their SL. I think they made a bad move having Posty play SL because Posty's native position is medic. If it were up to me, I would have had Posty play medic, head go SL. I think you can just manage that with, hey man, stand way back here and summon people. But they swapped it. So they had Posty on SL, head to medic. It didn't look great, honestly. It was a long game, longer than a lot expected. Albert's offense attacking F5 did struggle for a bit, even though head wasn't super aggressive as medic. He was doing enough to keep it together. I remember they had a mid-game lineup change for Matt's DMs at that base. Once they moved Cerrito into the call role, their defense really shored up. Like they were essentially winning that 5v5 side at that base at then, but Albert's team was doing so well on defense defending A5 that they were constantly swinging an F over at some point. So eventually they did break them at F5. There was a lot of laughs and jeers at head because he got out of TD range or something. In hindsight, it wasn't that big a deal. Sure, it looks silly, but he's probably going to die if he got any closer to him. They were just outnumbered because Albert got by. I've ranted about carrying ES for I don't know how many leagues we've done in free infantry, but at this point, if people don't want to listen, I'm not going to rant about it. You need ES on defense. If you don't have it, I'm just going to keep laughing as you lose these games. But yeah, what did I miss on that one?
This was the first game, too, when you look at the duration, where it was actually a long game, and the longer games, obviously, swings have a much more defining impact. So, in this game specifically, even though, like, they were doing okay on one side, the fact that Albert's quad cores could just freely swing from the defense consistently throughout the game just meant that Stonecutters, especially with their mismatch at supports, was almost just destined to lose. And you already covered it with the whole ES situation and Albert just running by like 4 or 5 people, and that was that. We're not going to go into too depth of that. It's just sad to see. I mean, guys, it's defense 101, especially in this game. We have a big notifications now that Cloaker's come in the game. We didn't have that luxury back in the day. Just have ES. It's simple. It's not that hard. Just do it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not going to yell at offensive players for not having ES. Like, I like to carry it in some of my loadouts on offense just in case there's an info swinging. I want to be able to quickly dispatch of him. But it's so unforgivable on defense. It's like hard to watch because I always say, like, I just care about the competition in the game. I'm not rooting for any one of these things except Albert to always lose because I don't like him. But like, I just want good gameplay, and you don't see that when you see an info run by like 6 people and 4 of them are defenders that don't have ES. It just doesn't make any sense. So
nope, you're right. And you have one other thing I want to touch on, and you brought it up too. Matt made the unfortunate decision of when he did the support swap, now he had less effective players at 2 positions or 3 positions as opposed to just at 1. And I mean, it's great that they held on for as long as they did, but overall, it was probably the wrong call to make.
Yeah, one more thing about this game, if I'm not mistaken, this was Caratank's first win. So shout out CT. You know, I talked to CT a little bit before the draft, right after the draft. I've been in a lot of different teams' practices and scrims. He's asked for some advice. I've given it to him. I've talked a little bit on Discord about it. And this sounds like a meme, but I'm genuine when I say it. I think CT's played really well this season at DM. Like, is it perfect? No, of course not. But it looks a lot better than it did. So kudos to Albert and those guys. Wolven, who I think is now battling the flu. We've all caught it from each other on the internet because it's 2025 or something. But, you know, Dez, BT, even Polaris, who's pretty much useless. But you guys playing with CT, I think you've really encouraged him to play his game. And we've got to see that throughout the season. So shout out, he got that first win week 1.
Shout out, Carrie.
All right, moving down to week 2. So this was the more recent weekend. A lot of good games that look like on the schedule. As the games played out, I was thinking, you know, I wanted more out of this. The first week, this is Black Sheep at Coerce. This was A5 at F5. Honestly, again, this is Smoke and Salve. I talked about their experience attacking a long base, and I thought we saw it again here. They did not roll over Coerce by any means, but they were able to kind of get that box pressure, whereas most people defending this base were, you know, pushing out harder. And we'll get to another game that Black Sheep played right after this against Matt Squad, where the picture looked very different. So this one did kind of make it to the 30-minute mark. At one point, A5 lost most of its reds kind of all of a sudden. Found out after in the VOD review that was because Mites was kind of double swinging, like one more swing than was needed. So poor Joe and Bell were trying to hold a 5-man offense by themselves in a small base. Didn't work out for him. That could have been game over. If you go back and watch that VOD, you can see there was a quick TD and out moment that they just didn't capitalize on. But instead, Z-Man rebuilt the base, had his team turtle for a little bit so he could go mine, because we know Z-Man's not going to stockpile 400 tox. It's just not who he is. He's cut from the cloth of Verb, where if I have 130 talks, I'm good. If I lose my rets, I'll rebuild them, then you guys can cover for me. I don't really have a problem with that as long as the team understands it, and it seems like they do. We saw it in Leadies too, where they were helping Verb mine talks and stuff. So seeing his team help him mine that one part they lost turrets was fine. But overall, I really thought Black Sheep controlled this game. They were doing consistent pressure, dropping an MG over and over at F5. And there's really good footage here of Smoke and Sav being what I would call a good OMP. The second the MGs go down, you see both of them charge forward, trying to zone the engineer away from everything else. And that creates the big calls like, hey, we need to swing home. Because if that NG goes on a death timer when your heavy's already set up in the back, it's just too much pressure. Like, there's no way your rets are going to survive. And that happened, I think, 3 or 4 times this game. Eventually, I think right after OT, this was the 34-minute game. OT hit. It's even harder to keep rets up. Base falls down. They barely kind of held that 10-man from an abort at A5, but it ultimately did. So shout out Smoke and Soft team. This was kind of looked at a big match of the week. And as we get to the standings later, you'll realize this was a big match.
I felt really bad for Albert's squad on this one because their 10-man unfortunately started right as the SL got cleared. So they could only attack A5 for 60 seconds, not 90 seconds. And it really felt similar to Albert's experience with Pizza Rats the previous draft league. I was like, oh no, Albert, not like this again. But the quality in this game was very good. And I really hope Coerced walked away from it not feeling bad or anything, but they could learn from it. Yep. And don't think, well, hey, we were holding them 5v5. They need to throw that mentality out of the window because 5v5, don't get me wrong, it's important, but the swing game is going to be what determines this league. And communication's better now. People can obviously hot swap in the dropship at a moment's notice. So the swing game and how people swing with what class, I mean, how Jesse was swinging as an infill, and he's normally the DM.
Yeah.
You have to be able to adapt to those situations. So the 5v5 game is important, but the squad's going to win and lose as a whole. And so you can't walk away from it. Well, defense did its job. Okay, I get that mentality, but your offense is swinging home because you're not holding up on the 5v5, which is now allowing their defense to swing at you, and the pendulum swings back and forth. There's room for improvement across the board. But I think if you're an outsider looking in, this is definitely the game to watch for the week.
Yeah, it was a really good game. And again, I wasn't really rooting for anyone, but I even mentioned Albert after the game, and I don't think he appreciated it because he was on the losing side. But this was a fun game to watch because to your point, Herth, like both teams, they got some tempo at different points, and they were able to capitalize and swing. And you don't usually see that. It's usually one team like, we're constantly swinging home. We're never swinging offense because we don't have the tempo. But in this first game of week 2, both teams had the advantage at times where they had 8 people attacking the other base. So to see that back and forth was cool. You usually don't see it in draft league. You get more one-sided eventual breaks. But no, this was a good game. Again, you're moments away from getting the flags out of A5 early in the game. So could have went either way. But again, congrats to Smoka's team for getting that one.
Congrats to Joe.
Now, this came into another really cool game. So this was Black Sheep at Stonecutters. So this is Smoka on a back-to-back. They just came off that big win against Albert's team, and then they're going to play Matt's team. So if you play this whole triangle property, Matt's team had lost the previous week to Albert. Albert's team had just lost to Black Sheep. Most of us watching before the game starts are thinking, like, Black Sheep's about to roll over Matt, and this is going to be a disaster. But that's straight up not what happened. Like, Stonecutters defended F5, which Albert had just defended in the previous game, but they defended it better than Albert's team did. Axis was pushing out to the street. Posty was pushing out to the street. It looked a lot like what we deployed in Des and Friends, abusing the medic TD push out, not just trying to kill the SL, but to waste their time. And so while the offense of Matt's team also did better, which I've talked online and offline about Iron, it's the best OF game I've seen all season. Now, sure, the check marks on the other team, they don't win this game, but Iron was dominating, attacking A5 in a very long game. He was outfighting Mites, Bell, Joe, eventually Metal, I think, was subbed in the Inf because Mites had to go. He was just the best Inf in the game. So it sucks he lost this one, but that is a great display of how to play OIMP. He's P6 for it. He's just eating these guys on the wall. Perfect time against Artees and whatnot. It's so good to watch. Things got really weird this game. We got to double OT and everything just went to hell. Like both bases fell apart. Stonecutters ends up taking over A5. but at the same time, Black Sheep then moved some flags to A7. So now you've got both teams on the same side. There was a weird mining bug, right? So Zeman and Mixum talked about this. They can only see something like 5 talks at every spawn. The rest of us in spec could see the 20 or 25 pile. So for this weird stretch, I know Herth and I were watching the game together. It's like, hey, why is it taking Zeman 13 minutes to build an RT? I didn't understand it, but we figured out after the game he couldn't pick up all the talks or something. He thought it was an intended result of double OT, where Axes reduced the talk spawn by 80% or something. That's not the case. This turned out to be some sort of bug. I'm not sure if a fix went in for it, but it never should have happened. Ultimately, they did get these flags out of A7. Then they had all the flags at A5. Stonecutters did. So Stonecutters is now on 10-man defense, and they're the big underdog coming into this game, and they messed up the subs. And I feel like I rightfully gave Matt, as the captain, so much hell about this, because it's just fundamental stuff. I talk about it in mixes all the time, how easy it is. Have your infos ready, have your contingencies ready, and they just panicked. So they've got Captain Axe sitting there as an SL that can't summon because they're TD'd from outside. Useless class. No offense to him as a person, but they already had 2 info, so he couldn't go info. They needed 2 more fighters in. Like, if you rewatch the VOD, they had a chance to win 10-man D. They pushed them out halfway through the base, and they just don't have enough fighters to push them out like 1 more third. If they had, that game was over. So everyone, just a reminder, be ready for 10-man. I know these games are long when there's mental fatigue, but you've got to get your subs right. You need 2 infos in. The other team's going to have 2 infos in. And after that, you need your support classes and you need fighters. You don't need JTs on packs. You don't need squad leaders. So if they had just made that change, I think they could have pulled the upset of the league so far. They didn't. So their under fighting man falls at A5. Black Sheep got the flags out to A7 and properly. I think this is a shout out deserved for Joe or maybe Sav. Someone was yelling, get out to A3. We've talked about the A3 tight chokes before. Albert faced them in the Ladies Championship. It's really hard to get through A3. If you're starting your 10-man at A3, the game's pretty much over, and that's what we saw in this one.
I enjoyed this game because I wanted to see how Exodus did against the Black Sheep offense.
Yeah.
Actually plays a D heavy that no other D heavy currently has that style. Most of them are sitting back with AC, SC, MML, and they're starting near the turret flag room or the hallway. Axie starts in your face with SC. And credit to him, he absolutely shreds with it. All of us that have played against him know what we're up against, and it's like, it's going to hurt. Well, Smoka and Sav have not been putting a lot of time into OVDs, so they're kind of coming in fresh to this with new eyes, and I don't think they knew it was going to hit them, and it hit them hard. If you look at the game duration, it was a long game, so credit to Axie for that. I was really impressed with the Stonecutters defense. Posty played the outside base like he's supposed to as a medic. Just when they die at the turrets, you put on your TD, you're running forward. You're not there to kill the SL, but especially with you have all these P6 OMs attaching and birding geysers, you're basically doing 1,000 energy damage in a moment. So job done there. It was great to see. I wish I could go back and watch it again, because like you said, the 10-man, I just felt so bad. They had it and they just completely threw it away.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a lesson learned for Matt, because the squad itself, when we get to the rosters for them, a lot of good players on that squad, and he needs to pull out a win.
Yeah, for sure. You credited Exodus. I want to credit the other heavy in the game, also on Matt's team on offense. So this is Trouble, who we know as Mystic Gohan. This is a guy who was kind of just a pub guy floating around the first draft league. I don't remember where he was the second draft league, so apologies for that. But I know he played with Matt and Exodus in the OVD league. This guy's coming along. Like, I think he's playing really well. I did give them some tips after the first week when they lost to Albert Squad at A5. I told them, like, hey, if I was attacking it, I would change these couple things. They took those adjustments to heart and implemented them, and they had the upper hand a lot at A5 this game. You mentioned Posty too. It just makes you think, like, what if they'd got that Posty position the first time when they played Coerced week 1 and just shove head into SL or shove someone else into SL? Posty played really well. So, I mean, I don't think he's been around too much the past few months, but he came back for this league and he looked really good this game at F5. Maybe he watched some of your gameplay from Des and Friends. I don't know, but it looked pretty similar, man. He was pushing out to the mountains.
No, and that's the way these outside bases should be played. And I would think every medic out there should be thrilled to know, hey, you can just play like a fucking maniac at these outside bases, and that is the proper course of play. And I don't know whether Posty got that from Matt or he came up with it on his own. Either way, I was just happy to see him like, oh, he's pushing him outside to F3. Kudos to him.
It was really good comms, and I don't have their comms file or anything, but it had to be good comms from their defense because even with Posty pushing them out to F3 or E2, Axis, the D heavy, was also swinging. There were so many times where Axis is lined up next to Trouble, raining a seal on the RT as Joe's probably yelling for a swing home at A5. And we've seen that since the first draft league, where Axis loves to swing, even if he's playing D heavy. I don't think there's any genius coordination. It's just, hey, you guys have boxes? Here I come. We have time. So I love seeing that. I've talked about it since the first draft league. I'd like to see more heavies do it, even Dez, who plays heavy. Like, find these windows where you push them out, your medic's causing hell, establish someone else's anchor, and go if your team offense is at boxes. I'm sure Albert would love to have the help on offense. So really well played by their team. It did suck that they lost on the 10-man D, but they really changed a lot of minds that night. After losing week 1, they looked really good week 2, especially in that game.
Really good. Yeah, because I think everyone was coming away from week 1 thinking, wow, they just kind of underperformed. But I almost would say that they overperformed in this game.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, Sav would agree. You'd mentioned, like, Sav's not around for a lot of the mix and OVD stuff. That was his first kind of taste probably of Axis. And I don't know, man. Axis was giving it to him a lot at F5. So shout out, Axie. Keep it up. All right. Coming down to the third game of week 2, this was Haters at Coerced. This is another quote-unquote depth game. So we had some backups in. This was A6 at F5. I will admit, during the live play, I was not fully watching this game. I was pivoting from the Black Sheep arena against Stonecutters into this one because the Black Sheep one went so long. So the parts I saw of this game, it looked like Haters' offense while attacking at F5 was not making much progress at all. And I'm not saying that to be controversial. It's just, I didn't see it. On the other hand, they were under not necessarily consistent pressure at A6, but enough pressure. And we come to expect that because just like you talked about in the last game, Herth, the medics can push these outdoor bases like F5 so much easier than they can A6. So when you get a power offense set up in A6, it's hard to get him out of there because you can't chase the SL with TD forever. If he makes it to the elevator, he can reset summon, then you're right back in. That doesn't exist at F5. So it made sense that F5 continues to outperform A6. That's pretty much my takeaway from this game. They did get the flags. I think this was like a 25, 30-minute game. Albert's team got the flags out that is from A6 after applying pressure all game. They got it out to F5, solid 10-man, game over.
Yeah, the one thing I do remember from this game, and one thing I think I've kind of seen this throughout the whole league so far, is the 10-man coordination from some of these squads is lacking because you can just tell there's a lot of, and you call it the one rep special from the infils on either side, which just completely torches the chances either on the defense or the offense because repulsors from the infils are just such a huge part. If you don't get all 3 off, you're really letting your team down. And I just feel bad because, and you can tell on the 10-man, there's not very many aborts. Yeah. Other than the Black Sheep wall, kind of like Stonecutters game, for the most part, the team that gets the flags at the start for the 10-man, they don't get aborted, they immediately go on to win, and there's no back and forth. So I don't know whether that's kudos to, hey, the defenses are now allowing the 10-man to start in that position, or it's just shame on the offenses for having 2 infills and they can't make any progress. So I really hope these squads put in some practice with, hey, on the 10-man, just have the leader come in, just kind of walk them in a private arena. This is what we need to do in this situation when we start at like the bottom of A7, for example, when you get to the boxes for the next choke, that happens there, and just so on and so forth. I think these squads really need that.
Yeah, for sure. I know I mentioned a year ago at this point, or nearly a year ago, something like 8 months ago, before the league even started, I was talking to people in the mixes about like what makes an effective 10-man infill. And you said at the high level, it's getting your reps off. But what that means is understanding like when to accelerate and when to decelerate. Because when you use an ERFG, which a lot of people say is this overpowered item, it does create a bubble around you. But if you keep running full speed into that bubble, you're going to outrun your own protection. And that's where we see what we call the Rufo special. A lot of infils get the 1 rep off. They're running in a straight line. They don't decelerate. So all that inbound fire gets to them before their rep reloads. The way you want to do this, you can find it any of us playing mixes who look like we've played infil before. I think people say I play a good infil. Sav plays a good infil. Albert plays a good infil. we're not always running in a straight line. We're decelerating to make sure we stay in that bubble of protection. So it's not all about rushing to the flag room. It's about getting the reps off and controlling the displacement. I'd love to see it improve. There's still time left this league, but I think overall it's just like people may not understand the full ERFG mechanics. And if you look a little bit more into it, it can help a lot.
Yeah, and it's okay to not go for the glory rep. Like, you just need to get your 3 reps off. Don't go for, hey, this is like the perfect position for one. There's a chance you're not going to get it. So don't get greedy.
Yeah, I can tell you when I'm playing it, if I'm in full on 10-man offense, I'm trying to get my reps off and move forward. That does not mean I'm prioritizing moving forward. I'm prioritizing getting the reps off. When I can move in between because they're angled at certain directions and I understand projectile times and whatnot, sure, I'll make progress forward. But my team is going to help me push that. I don't have to be in the front all the time. I can be next to an OM for even someone on a board who's drawing fire. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot of imps playing way too fast, I think.
I agree. Sometimes it's just about the reps are actually protecting the rest of your own members at the same time as pushing them back, as opposed to you just, well, I'm the only one up and I've got to push them all back, and your offense is 5 paces behind you. So it doesn't do anything. They can't capitalize on what you're pushing back and draining at the same time.
Yep. I think one more thing that happened in this game, I could be wrong, Herth, I don't know if you remember. I think this was the game where Ron flew in on the board and flagged it. I think he's NG this game.
I believe you are correct. Yeah,
this.
when we swapped the arenas to this one at the very end, Ron, Big Dick Ron, came in with the board, did his thing. Yeah, he was a legend.
Yeah. All right, moving into the last game so far. This is the last game of week 2, and as far as we've got in the season as is, this was Haters at Stonecutters. So this was another A6 at F5 game. This was not a depth game, I don't believe. This was standard power offenses from both teams, and this was another tale of the differences between A6 and F5. The medic impact so much bigger at F5, and we got to see it again here. Stonecutters, they just come off the devastating over-hour loss where they had the 10-man and it failed. This time, they really dominated start to finish. This was a quick game. Stonecutters getting to the boxes at A6, very healthy. I will again reference Pizza Rat's early offense from last season, where in CTFDL 2, the Pizza Rat's power offense gets up there like full energy, full HP. They're all P6. Good luck dealing with that. It looked a lot like that in this game at A6. Grump made a surprise showing here at Heavy. So he had played the first week attacking A5. I kind of got on his case as a bud about stop going to the bottom corner, getting yourself killed. Played a lot better at A6, but it's also just a lot easier to play into a heavy base and as a 3-imp base for Heavy. But he came in, dominated turrets for about 9 minutes. Around 11 minutes, they're out of tox. The base is crumbling. Matt quickly smells blood and subs in head as JT. And I think he flagged it like 2 or 3 runs after trying. And that's cool. I got no issue with that. If you want to get the JT and finish the game, do that. We don't see a lot of people do it, so shout out to Matt, who usually messes everything up. He actually made a good captain's call here, said, let's finish the game, get on a pack, and he did just that. So they got the flags out, head sitting there at F5. Matt got his infuls in quick this time. They had the subs ready, and they held F5 just like you talked about. Effective infil reps, dominating the choke. Other team had infuls dying after 1 or 2 reps. Matt's infuls are getting all 3 reps plus the rep charge off. That difference in displacement created so much space and drain that other team really didn't have a chance on this one.
I was so happy to see Head come in as the JT. I really am. I want the flagging JT to come back into the game. I think a lot of the stuff defenses can get away with now, like being super aggro at the outside bases. The flagging JT is the counter to that. So the more flagging JTs that come back, I've seen Galaxy kind of experiment with it too, and Smoka. Fortunately, Chucky left, but hopefully more players pick it up. I just like to see Head get some playtime. I know back in the day, he was always a JT, never really was lauded as one of the greatest or anything like that. Just kind of hopped on his death board, did his thing. So, I mean, good guy. Glad he came in, actually made a huge difference, got those flags in and out, and Stonecutters and Matt Squad unfortunately took it for a win.
Happy for Axis, but we never want to see Matt win. It's not part of the agenda.
It's part of the... It sucks for us because I want to root for Axie, but I don't want to root for the other guy.
Yeah, you and everyone else.
Yeah.
So I think that concludes the recaps. That leaves us with standings where Black Sheep, despite already playing 2 big away games, are 3-0. They're sitting in what should be a prime position to lock in the 1 seed, which a lot of people may or may not realize. I would assume most teams who have the option at home are going to continue taking Titan, like we've seen throughout the season. I think home selection for all 7 games has been Titan. So if Black Sheep can get that Titan side, we're going to see them look even stronger come playoff time, where they've played Collective twice, Titan once. If they can get the 1 seed, get on Titan in the playoffs, it could be a smoke show where they just roll through people. We'll see. Teams are going to have to figure out how to effectively attack F5 if they deploy heavy, or D6, which everyone hates attacking right now.
Well,
But-
I have a question
Yeah.
for you, because Black Sheep Wall is pretty much the only squad right now that sticks purely to 3D inf defense.
Yeah.
So are you sticking to D7, or are you going to A5, which is outside?
I'm doing whatever their defensive shot caller is comfortable with, honestly. And I think it's Joe right now. Maybe it's ZMN or something. They have people on the roster that technically will play heavy. Now, we haven't seen them play heavy, but they can play heavy. As you know, no offense to the D heavies, Axie, Daz, all these guys. D heavy is not the hardest thing in the game to play. It's just not. If you have a fundamental understanding of it and your aim and inbound damage understanding is high enough, you can play D heavy. So they have people that can play it. Are they going to opt into F5 because F5 has looked so strong in this tournament, in the previous tournament? We'll see. But you're right. So far, they've only played 3 inf bases, but I think once they get that Titan option, who knows? They could change their mind if they're worried about any kind of rush offense.
I agree. And Joe has put in a lot of time with the dojo, and they were pretty much D7 merchants, so I wouldn't be
Oh, no.
surprised if he sticks to that.
Not the merchants. So, just to cover standings: Black Sheep 3-0, Albert Squad Coerce 2-1, Bonza Squad Haters 1-3, and then Matt Squad Stonecutters 1-3. So as you can tell, a couple squads have already played 4 games. They only have 1 game coming up. We'll go over those matches a little bit later, and then the other guys have 1 more game left. So I think next we're going to talk about some of the rosters, and this is something we would have done prior to the season starting, but as Albert talked about, we've all had the flu and rotation, so there just wasn't a podcast. I'm going to talk about like what we've seen on the rosters, maybe what we expect to see, something like that. Yeah, so that kind of does it for our recap. We've gone over the standings and everything. Albert, before we go into the team rosters, which we should have covered week 1 if we had a podcast, anything you want to add about the matches so far?
No, the only thing I really wanted to say was about Ron flagging on a hoverboard. I kind of wish more teams would do stuff like that, especially like when you swing. It's always an infantry or a heavy. It's never the engineer, and it provides so much more. Like, it's basically how Newfie did it the entire 2 seasons it was alive. We would always swing the engineer for EB, and then on the hoverboard reprogram, haywires, all that stuff. So I think it's good support, and I think teams should do it a little bit more. Also, to touch on reprogramming kit, it is bugged, and I don't know why it hasn't been like taken out or fixed or something, but if you reprogram something, they can't get it back. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of messed up that that's still being used and able to be used, because as soon as that RT was dropped, like you guys talked about earlier, once it was taken, you're no getting it back. It's theirs forever. So
That's Infinite's RT. Sorry, Mixup.
Sorry, Mixum.
So I don't know. Hopefully Axie can fix that before playoffs, because I could see that really, changing some outcomes or messing some stuff up. But that's pretty much all I had on it. All the teams played great. I mean, the mistakes that you guys picked up on, like, for example, Stonecutter's class changes in, the Black Sheep Wall match, they fixed it in the Haters match immediately. Like, it was fast, it was good.
Yeah.
The switch to Head was good. I think Head was also in the Black Sheep game too, so it's good to see that he's getting used and his JT's getting used. So I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. All around, it was good matches, and I'm glad that, like, from a viewer perspective, the matches that are playing are good, for you guys and everyone else watching. All right, so we'll get into the rosters. We'll start off with my team, Coerced. I'll get Kelby you to take us through it, and you guys can, talk about whatever you want to do with it and just the people and all that stuff and what you'd like to see, and, maybe some what we did last season 2 of DL, where we talked about, like, people to watch out for and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I'll kind of give you my recap of when I first saw the draft results, like what I thought of this team. So pretending I haven't seen the games, I thought right away, this looks like a solid defense you can form 4 or 5 different ways, but I'm not super confident in the offense. And now that we've seen a few weeks, I do feel kind of vindicated on this one. The offense has, quite frankly, struggled. This is not one of the top 2 offenses in the league, and when you're playing in a league of 4 people, you want to be somewhere in the top 2. So I know Albert's been on the offense. He's a good leader and everything. Got some other folks that don't have so much experience. I know Mecca's changing classes a lot, doing different things. DB, or others know him as Thiz, changing classes a lot, doing different things. Herth, I know you've got things to mention about like what's the identity of this offense, and I can't even begin to tell you, man. Like the defense can work so many different ways. I don't want to give up like my exact recommendation because I'm not trying to tell Albert how to run his squad, but I think maybe moving some of the talent from this overperforming defense into offense could be advantageous in this scenario. So
I like that train of
Yeah.
thought. But yeah, when I think about the identity of this offense specifically, there just isn't one. And unfortunately, they're not at that skill level where, hey, they're talented enough where someone can switch class and the rest of the team can adapt to, oh, I'm playing with a foot JT now,
Yeah.
or I have a heavy or an infill or a JT or anything like that. So they really need, if I was them, I'd be like, look, we're running 3-1 heavy, or we're running 3-1 JT and we're doing flag room rush. And this is what we're in practice, what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing in the games. Everyone gets the experience with, hey, this is what I need to do in this situation at this base with this offense. It's very regimented. You get experience that way, and it'll translate into the actual games. Right now, it's like, well, Mecha runs O heavy for like the first 10 minutes, or then we go to foot JT, and now we're doing flag room rush, and this is all in the same game. And if that doesn't work, now we're trying offense number 3. So as much as I appreciate, hey, you're trying different things because it's not working, unfortunately in real games that's not going to translate into results, because now these other players, they're not going to know what to do. They don't have the experience for it. And in a draft league like this where swings really matter, if your offense can't get anything done or at least maintain pressure, then your defense is going to suffer, and it's just going to domino from there.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, thinking back to the OVD league, there was a game or two where the squad we were on, Des and Friends, we changed class lineups every 3 minutes because we couldn't figure something out. But that was against a base that doesn't have an established offensive meta. Like all the bases being played in this league, there is a agreed upon best method to attack them. So while I appreciate the experimentation and stuff, I do think they're overdoing it a bit on offense. I think they should do that in practice, find out what they're comfortable with, and just try to hone in and master that per every base type. If you're attacking the long base, this is the offense you're going to run. You're going to try to do your best at it. If you're attacking a compressed base, this is the offense you're going to run. I don't like that they're swapping every 5 minutes. DB is sometimes JT, and then Mecha and Alb are both going infill at some points, which I don't think is intentional on swings and stuff. It's a little too much changing to where you can't build that chemistry and flow of understanding, like how to play an exact offense. So the one we specialized for the most part last season was a power offense. We all knew the ins and outs of how each other played because we got to play in practices and scrims and stuff. These guys are missing those reps, like just the repetition of this is what we look like every time at this type of base, because it's like every week it's a new iteration. So I'd like to see them figure it out going into playoffs in a couple weeks and whatnot. I think they will. Obviously, they have the Newfie leadership, championships galore and all this stuff. And I mentioned, this defense is performing really well. Almost any iteration on defense has performed really well. I would like to see their heavy swing a little more when they push out, but aside from that, looks pretty good. Anything else before we move on to the next team, Herth?
Just one thing to comment on, and you alluded to it in the beginning. If he can get away with getting one of those defensive members to now become an OINF, I think that's probably the way to go. I really am curious to see if these toys with that idea in practice and whether it translates to the actual playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. And like I said earlier, they've probably got to expect to go on the road at some point. So you got to find a way to attack F5 and or D6. It's not always going to be A5, which is easier, or A6, which is easier. So they got to figure out something and figure it out quick for offense. All right, coming down to the next team, this is Stonecutters. As we talk about our user, everyone knows this is Matt. And then main zone developer Axidus, super aggro heavy. In the first week, the squad looks so out of sorts with the whole kind of flowed down support massacre we talked about, where head and post are both playing out of position. Prior to that, I didn't realize Axe was going to miss the game. I was thinking this is like a raw fighting team. Like they have a decent mix of raw fighters, and then like these, I'll say B+ to A- tier supports. Like this looks like a pretty decent drafted team by RR and whatnot. I think I may have underestimated them, to be honest. After seeing how they performed attacking A5 and defending F5 in that second week, unfortunate 10-man loss against Black Sheep, I know. But I think they're better than I gave them credit for in my head when they were drafted. Iron, who doesn't do a lot of OVD and mixed stuff with us, or at least he wasn't before this, he's looked awesome. Like I talked about, he's just a difference maker on offense. He's one of those top OMs. I can't think of many that I replace him with. Mixum too, Mixum comes back. He's not been in the community for much the past couple months. Suddenly he's back. He looks fine playing the engineer role. Colossal, the only 2-time champ, I think. Maybe there's another. Apologies if so, but he looks good when he's there. Yeah, I don't know. I think with Axis swinging as much as he is and Posty playing strong at medic, I think this is a scary squad. And you may not see that in the standings because they only have one win. But when they had their actual starters in, the squad looked straight up scary. They were, again, 2 subs away from probably holding off the number 1 team. So, yeah, I think I underestimated them. What do you think, Earth?
For me, the shining star really has been Cerrito on this team.
Yeah.
Ever since his swap to Caw Imp and defense, it's really made them so scary, even on the defensive side, in addition to Exodus.
Yeah.
Because I know Matt originally toyed with Cerrito because Cerrito can play a lot of different positions. Yeah. And now they kind of found his niche, like, hey, this is where I need you the most in this team. He's really excelled there. I'm so happy to see it. Mixum, I'm glad he's back too. He does some interesting turret setups sometime. So
a little off meta.
It's a little off meta. Again, it's not like he's here for a lot of OVD, so I guess he kind of missed the changes of like, hey, this is what you should set up at these new bases, which he probably hasn't seen before. But he has a lot of raw talent, so it was great to see. Colossal shows up, which is always good. Good talent when he actually, now that he has hopefully his attendance issues sorted out.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think on paper, it's easy to kind of underestimate this squad. But after seeing them play, at least with all the starters when they showed up, they're very formidable. Yeah, I hate to give credit to Matt, but
so don't. Credit to Axie for all the formidability. You know,
Axie for putting this one together.
Yeah, and I like to say all the time, like once it's on tape, you can't really deny it. And so there's VODs out there that make the squad looking strong against the top squad right now. So yeah, good job, keep it up. This squad could make a run for it and be an actual threat come playoff time. All right, coming into haters, this is Bond squad. Bonds and Tactical, 3rd straight league together. They were drafted by Metal together in the first league. Bonds drafted him 2 leadies in the second league where they won the championship, and now co-captaining with Bonds in the 3rd league. This squad for me has been quite the letdown. I'll just throw it out there. I looked at this one and thought, you know, they also have a lot of imps who can fight, and I'm all about the imp fighting talent. Plus, I like Decorate NG, I like Decorate SL. I'm growing a little more tolerant of Infinite and the way he plays engineer, and I'm not playing medic, and some medics love playing with him, like Bond, so who am I to judge at this point? This squad's offense, man, they just can't get it together. I don't know what the shot calling is. I've talked a little bit with some of their members trying to figure out like what's going wrong. I know District is posting things about P6 is so bad, this game is different. I don't think any of that's true. I think they even had Axie go back and look at the files. P6 is the same as it was back in our day, as they say. I don't know, man. Like the defense can only do so much. They're forced to play the heavy bases because they have an MML heavy using heavy weapons. So you always know they're going to be in a long base. Unfortunately for them, they have been in A6 a few times, which is not as good as F5. So they've looked strong at points. We've seen some of their offline scrims too, you know, the unofficial matches where defense is looking pretty sturdy, as you can imagine. But this offense, man, it's never consistent. I know they've had Galaxy try to play JT on a pack, off a pack. He's played Imp, and I still think he's one of the best OIMPs in the game. He's up there for me with like the Smoke and the Iron. He just plays really well with a P6 preference. If you push him into Carrot, maybe a different story, but on P6, he's pretty strong. I don't know, you know, the District pick at 5, that seemed a little early for someone that hasn't really hung out, played with us for a while. Used to be a great player. I don't know if he gets enough reps in now to be anywhere close to as good as he used to be. Mountain looks good. Yosh looks as expected. Still a skirmisher, kind of finding his way and whatnot, but I don't know. Overall, I've been kind of let down by these guys. I feel bad for him because I really respect Bonds and his willingness to captain again, and Tactical taking on a leadership role. He's one of those skirmishers that I've talked to a fair amount, and he seems to want to get better and want those around him to get better. So I don't have any magic for these guys to figure it out, but you got to do something on that offense or this team's going nowhere.
This is another one where there's just no offensive identity. And again, it comes down to, I know Galaxy's up there and he's trying different things to make it work, but they just need to pick something and just go, look, this is what it needs to be. So that way they get to experience, they stick with it, they know what to do. Because again, they're running it with players that should know what to do on offense. Galaxy knows what to do. District theoretically should know what to do. Yosh, Waylander, there's experience there. They just need to actually stick, hey, these are the classes we're sticking with, and get the reps in. And I think that offense will do better. At least I hope they do better. Again, I look at the names and I kind of have in my head where I expect them to be and what I expect their output to be. And like you said, I'm just not seeing it in the results or even in their play
Yeah.
on the battlefield.
It's just not making sense. And the defense, I think it's operating at the level I would expect it to based on the personnel they deployed across it at these long bases. Again, A6 and F5. But man, I look at some of the OMs they have, and Galaxy obviously one of the top OMs. They've tried Waylander in some of the games. District, again, I think this could be a bit of a wild card one where he was drafted a little bit too high considering he hasn't played so much, and it's coming back to bite them because he's just not what he used to be. So no hate on the guy. I think he would admit the same. He's not quite what he used to be. But man, I don't know. Like these are some good players surrounding that offense, and it just quite frankly isn't going anywhere. So I do hope they figure it out because I like a lot of these guys. And I know that they want to play the game the right way. But I do agree with you. Let's stop reinventing the wheel for these draft leagues. Just acknowledge there is a defined meta on how to attack a long base. There's a defined meta on how to attack a compressed base, and just specialize in it. And if you want to deviate a little, fine, practice that deviation. But don't keep changing it like throughout the game. You're mentally fatiguing yourself more and more. You've got to get something and stick to it.
And the mental attrition you suffer when now your second try at a new offense doesn't work. It's like, okay, we just ran through plan A, we ran through plan B. What's plan C? And your morale's just going to suffer. People are going to start playing worse. They're just going to wish for the game to end. And yeah, it's just not a winning strategy.
Yeah, you just want to get it on paper going in, like, oh, we're attacking this base. This is the plan we're going to try to, go for. So hopefully they can figure it out. Much like Albert's offense, we've not seen a lot here. Maybe they can move one or two players around. I don't know if their defense can afford to. I think Albert's got a little bit more luxury in moving these guys. He drafted a heavy defensive and flex roster, whereas Bonds doesn't have a ton of defense to flex over. But maybe he can figure something out. At this point with the season they're having, they've only won the depth game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm fairly certain that's accurate. So they could really try any roster moves at this point and not have much to lose. So we'll see what happens. All right. This is the Black Sheep Wall team. Again, Smoke Up, Shadow Council, Kev in the background probably helped build this team like he does all the teams with his group. Dilatory taking a co-captain leadership role. This team's been as advertised. There was, the trade the night of the draft where suddenly the team with the 4th pick ended up with the 1st pick and the 5th pick. So I think that rubbed a few people the wrong way. I don't want to go into all the details about it. I don't know all them all and don't think it matters. But they did become the favorites at that point, and they've kind of kept the ship going in that direction. Despite being on the road, they're the away team taking collective a lot of these games. They're undefeated. They've played, I think, the majority of their hard games in the regular season. They've looked really good. They don't have like these standout stars on defense, right? It's Joe, who's a great leader and everything, but he'll be the first to admit I'm not the best DM for the game. It's Bell, who's not the best DM for the game. It's Mites, who's good, probably not the number 1 DM. It's Metal, same thing. Like, I don't know, that they've kept it together with, open communication. And we kind of saw that last season too in some squads where you don't have the best people, but if you have like really good leadership, which I think is Joe doing a lot of the shot calling. So shout out Joe from right, shout out whoever else deserves it if I'm wrong. The defenses look good. And then when you take Smoka, who I've said for a year now, probably the best joint in the game as far as I'm concerned, Iron giving a run for his money based on what I saw last week. And then you pair him with Sav, who's just one of the best infantry players. I don't mean the class, I mean the game. It's a lot to deal with. I don't want to go there too often, but people said, "Oh, Des and friends, you guys stack too much on offense. What do you think we're going to do?" It looks a lot like that when these two are controlling boxes. It's me and Wolven holding a box. Good luck. They're both really hard to kill, and they're not making the wrong decision. They know when to protect the heavy. They know when to release the heavy and go after the engineer, finish the turret. So you see that in all the gameplay. They've had some plug and play heavy stuff where Sabos played heavy, Chev's played heavy. Maybe we'll see other people play heavy. I don't know. And then accompanied by Ghost Bomber, who, pat on the back for Herth and I, if you don't mind. I told people he's going to look good next to these guys, and he has absolutely looked good. He is a P6 preference imp who can manage his energy, is good at attacking long bases, more than happy to protect the heavy and rack up kills on Eukarya units coming into him. So shout out, this guy played forever, like 20 plus years ago with us. Didn't have a ton of CTFPL high level experience, but he's looked really good as the third accompanying piece to that offense. What do you think, Herth?
I think the best strength of this squad is the fact that their defense is not the standout point. All the other squads, for the most part, their best players are all on defense. This squad, they're all on offense, which really is the way to play since, and I'm not going to say this to sound disparagingly to people, but Like, you can hide worse players on defense than you can on offense.
Yep.
And with a good leader in Joe and Dilatory, when his kids aren't breaking his shit or when he's sober, is also a very good medic. So that defense is solid, holds the line, and just they're there to just buy enough time for that offense of Saab, Smoka, Ghost Bomber, Jouet, and whichever plug and play heavy they throw in to deal the damage, force the enemy's offense to swing home. And again, they know how to play the swing game, which is really important in these leagues. Games are won and lost off of swings. They're not won and lost off of the 5v5.
Sure. I think both Joe, and for those that don't know, Joe is Knight. So their fourth pick is the Knight equals Joe. So I think between Knight on defense and Solid on offense, they have probably the best swing communication in the game. I don't have any of their comm files or anything like that, but I've played with these guys against these guys. I imagine it's a lot of, hey, we're boxes, you want to swing one? Yep. Might go offense, or I'll go offense, whatever the case. And you see that in their games. Like, they bring extras to offense a lot. Whereas I talked about Axis will call his own shot at D heavy. Joe may call someone else's shot as one of the DMs, or the NG, and we'd be remiss to not credit ZMN as for his NG play. Sure, he's not mining to win the Most Talks Mind Award, but he's just one of the best fighting engineers. He's a nuisance to play against. He's got grape shots everywhere, and he's going to PB hay you, and he's going to EMP you. I don't love playing against ZMN. He's pretty decent. He can keep himself alive longer than you would expect, so he's also helping stabilize that defense. And he was playing offense last season. It's funny. We talked about the flexibility of this pick in every draft league. We laughed at him the first one. That squad went way further than expected. He won the second one playing offense like OMF at times, JT at times in the championship. And now he's helping anchor, a very steady defense. So shout out ZMN, most annoying person in the community, but really earned his keep at this point.
He is an annoying shit, but I can honestly say he is probably the best member of that defense. Yeah. It pains me to say it, because you're right. He won't EB. All he wants to do is just lay mines and throw haywires. He doesn't care what team he hits with them. He just wants to throw all four of them, and that's it. But somehow he makes it work in his dumb, annoying way, and it really leads to this team's success.
Yep. I will say with this team, and I hope I'm not mistaken saying this, they've not played a ton of their depth yet. When I look at this roster, it's mostly picks 1 through 10 that are playing these games. I've not seen a ton from those kind of 11 to teen picks. So I don't know if they have more games ahead where it's going to be depth games. I'm not sure. We'll get to that. But maybe when they play some of their depth, it looks different. But as far as like starting lineups, until proven otherwise, this is the top squad. And they did benefit from having essentially picks 4 and 5 instead of, wrapping around back, or 1 and 5, not 4 and 5. But despite that, they've held the crown so far. Until someone knocks them off, this is the top squad.
All right, thank you guys for going through the rosters. We're going to talk about week 3, but before we get into that, I want to know, did anything like surprise you guys from the games you watched? Did you, maybe see something that you weren't expecting to see, or what are you like, what are your thoughts? Like, what really wowed you, if anything, from the games that have been played?
I think it's easiest if we just say our biggest surprise, and I'll go first so Hearth can't steal it. I think Stonecutter's performance as the home team against Black Sheep, mainly their offense, was the biggest surprise I've seen all season. Despite RR being a fighting member of this offense, they were pretty dominant at A5. So to see Mystic Gohan being from like this unnamed guy from Pub in the first league to now the starting heavy who's ranked 2 most of the game and leading the game in turret damage or whatever, like it's really cool to see. And then, like I said, Iron coming back and still being an S+ player when he was expected to maybe be a little faded at B+ or A-, that's been great too. So for me, that's been the biggest shock, is Stonecutter's offense with their full lineup in.
Kelb stole my surprise.
But pick something else.
Yeah. I would say one of my biggest surprises, in addition to that, really was seeing some of the older players come back and still have a great impact on the game. Like on Albert's squad, he's got GT, who's been away from the game for a while, comes back, picks up right where he left off. If not anything, he's actually even a little bit better on that squad than he was when he left. And he's making a huge impact. Saab's been away from OVDs for a while in Skirmish World. He comes back, still doing his thing on Black Sheep Wall with Joe, leading them to victory after victory. It's just great to see these old talented players come back and pick up literally right where they left off. They haven't missed a beat. Whereas some of us, when we came back, it's like, what button do we hit to unspec again? Or what's a macro? So it's good to see.
Yeah, you can call district by name. I already have. Let's go
Okay,
district.
yeah.
Get it together.
Yeah, no, and as much as I'm glad to see District come back, and I think I actually saw him pick up Carapace in a game the other day, he's making progress. He's expanding his mind and realize, hey, maybe to be a good OMF again, I actually have to learn how to play both armor classes. So hopefully Roman, along with other players, kind of come back again to this community, help it grow, and we get more good leagues like this one so far.
Yeah, that's all we can ask for.
I'll throw out a surprise, I guess, on my end. So I'm in the captain's chat, which, a lot of people don't get to see public-wise and, like, community-wise. But the willingness of the captains to, like, you pointed out earlier, to play the depth games, to play the bench in games against each other and try to make it as even as possible. It's been great. Like, as soon as the idea was thrown out, every captain was like, yeah, let's do it. And in my opinion, it's really good for these players that want to play and are signing up to play that don't usually get to play in past games or seasons, that they get to play now and they get to learn. It's great to see too that every squad is super active. 3 nights a week probably there's scrims, so that's really good to see too. And the benches are getting played, or the depth are getting played in those games too. So everyone is getting their experience, they're getting their play time, and I think that was like the number one complaint previous seasons, is that, like, one guy that comes to mind is Eric. Eric showed up every practice, every game, never unspec'd once. But now he's playing. Rue had a problem with that last season, and now he's playing. So, like, it's good, and that's going to keep bringing these people back. It's also going to make people better. So, like, they're not always going to be a bench. You pointed out Mr. Gohan. He came from pub, came out of nowhere. Now he's starting heavy on an offense, and he's rank 2. He's rank 1 in turret damage. So, like, That's how these people advance and get better, is playing them. So it's good to see that the captains are willing to do that, and like the whole league just came together to do it. And I know, like you said, there is some pushback on it, but I don't know, man. I think it's needed, and I think it's fair.
So, Albert, just to tack on to you mentioning, hey, players are actually asking questions and learning. I just to promote this on the Discord, and I've kind of seen this in the past couple of weeks. A lot of players are starting to ask questions, and how, if anything, 2 new channels have been created, like one for squad leaders and one for medics. So shout out to people like Cal, Abbott, Loaf Pincher, all players more coming in, asking questions, getting answers from veteran leadership, from more than just me. I mean, other players have commented in too, like, hey, this in these situations, these are what you should be doing. And even adding in some, hey, in general knowledge, like that applies to more than just those classes. Like just overall, hey, in this situation, no matter what class you are, this is what you need to do. And I'm really happy that these less experienced players, 1, are getting playtime, 2, have the leadership to ask these questions and get answers now. And I really hope that continues on for this league and the rest. And it's just a good thing to see overall.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm hoping these medics don't all become Herthbul. I think 1 Herthbul is enough for all of us.
And honestly, it seems like the more we see these outside bases getting used, the more that the medics are, doing it. And the more we talk about it on here, the more the captains are dry. Like, I know that as soon as we talked about it, and like we did it in the OVDL league, and Matt noticed it, and now he's driving that home. Like, the reason Posty's playing like that is because Matt's like, bro, you just gotta run, just run, like run until you die. Yeah. Push them out, make them attach, like do whatever you gotta do, just get them out of the base and just stay on the SL and TD them, and that's all you gotta do. And like the more people drive it home, and the more like Posty does this, the better he's gonna get at it. And I think that the more it happens, the more that it will happen. I would not be surprised to see these bases go like on an elevator switch to like even them out more in like future DL leagues and stuff like that. I think that it's been brought up like 3 or 4 times by the public now, or like the community, that they want to do it, and I think that's something that's probably going to end up happening in the future.
It's one thing I've been pushing for. I know, look, I'm the biggest fan of, hey, just as the medic, I'm going to exploit this and I will push you out the A1 if I can. But on the flip side, I'm also pushing for, I know we can't do it with this season, but certainly after the season, those outside bases need to be completely changed. Elevators, something. Because unfortunately, the biggest counter to that play style, there's no flagging JTs in the game. And that really is the counter to it. The medic can't go out to Narnia because the JT can then potentially just fly behind you. And, well, you're completely out of position at that point. You're going to pay the price. So until more JTs come back in the game, we're going to have to adjust the map to compensate in the meantime.
Yeah, 100%. But, yeah, so we'll get back to week 3. Upcoming matches that are happening in 2 days from right now, but probably 1 day from when you guys hear this. They're going to be on February 23rd on Sunday. Kelby, I'll get you to run us through these.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. So we're kicking off the week with Coerced hosting Stonecutters. I think this is a quote-unquote depth game. I'm not exactly sure, but based on the first one being mostly starters, I think we're going to see some depth pieces come in this one. I don't want to make any predictions because I'm honestly not pulling for anyone. I just want to see a good game. I want to see a repeat of week 2, game 1, where it was Coerced versus Black Sheep Wall. I want to see both teams find tempo, find momentum, and push it back and forth until one team crumbles. That's entertaining as for spectators, and it's good learning for everyone involved. So no prediction. Should be a good game, whether it's depth or not. But there are like big playoff implications this week. I don't have the full matrix in front of me that says this is your scenario to clinch the 2 seed or the 1 seed. But essentially, every team still wants to win the remaining games of 3. Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I still fully expect, I'll make this really bold claim, all 3 home teams this week are going to take Titan. There's just no reason to take Collective right now. So that's my bold claim for the week. Anything on that one, Herth?
I want to see some of the depth players in that game play like Head, Attempt, Mike Jones. I want to see Albert's boy Wells show up and play some games there too. But like you said, I just really hope that there's a good game. I want there to be a good game, hopefully long. I want to see these depth players get unspec'd and actually be able to enjoy playing themselves for like a good 30, 45 minutes. Nothing insane like a good 90-minute game because that's a little too much excitement. But, something reasonable.
Sure. The second game of the week, again, I think this is a depth game for the agreements. These guys already played in the first week. It looked like that was their starting lineups. And the first week, this is one where we pretty much watched Sov, Smoke, and Chev just roll over A6. So this time they're the away team. They'll probably be defending, A5 or A6, whichever one Joe or whoever's playing defense wants to defend. Haters, I would expect to be at F5 almost no matter what. Again, they have multiple heavies on their squad. It's hard for them to field a 3DF lineup. If they can, great. We'll see. Maybe Tactical's still in even a depth game. He can rotate to offense. I don't know. Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. Probably a better game with the depth in, as long as it's like an agreed upon depth, because the first time these 2 squads played, this was not a good game. This was a beatdown at A6 for 10 minutes and then the game ended. So I'm expecting a better showing from Haters regardless this game. And yeah, good luck to both of you.
I agree. And in the first depth game that they played, DP and Mushberg did some real work on that offense. So it'll be good to see him do it again. Because if you look at the Black Sheep Wall's depth, they're kind of top heavy.
Yeah.
So if they're playing their depth, it'll be a much more balanced game.
I think I mentioned that just recently in the team review we did. Like, yeah, we haven't seen a lot of the Black Sheep players beyond pick 11 get unspec'd in these games. So if they're going to agree and get 4 or 5, 6, 7, I don't know, however many they're going to get in, it could look very different than the dominant team we've seen so far. So we'll see. Could be a really fun game. Last game, again, I think this is a depth game. These guys have already played. Albert's on here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But they did play the epic 30-minute game, probably the most fun back-and-forth game of the season so far. But with depth in, who knows what's going to happen, right? Albert's team's going to be defending collective something, I would imagine. And then I'm guessing Joe's going to be at D6 with his squad, regardless of who he has in. I don't know. Maybe they do something else with it. I think if they've already won the previous game, they kind of clinch the 1, so they can do whatever with this game. But I don't know. We'll see what they decide to do. Yeah, good luck to both of you.
I agree. Yeah, good luck, Albert. I know Carey's kind of looking for a grudge match to avenge his loss in the last one, but with this being a depth game, unfortunately, he's not going to get that chance until the playoffs.
Yeah. If they match up in the playoffs, we'll see.
Oh, we will. No worries. We're going to stomp Matt down.
All right, Albert's predetermined a seed, so you can tell he's part of the overarching Shadow Council.
You guys are absolutely right, though. These are all depth games, the 3 of them, as of right now, and I believe it's going to remain that way. I think that you're going to see a lot of people get played, I hope. Like, I know that I was talking to Smoke, and he said that he can get those people to log in when they know it's like their week to play. So hopefully that we do get to see that, because like I said earlier, it's good that all these people do get to play, and learn and grow and get better, so that they get picked again and get to play more. So I think that all three of them will end up being that. I know my two are for sure. So we'll see how it goes. Those games are pretty much, you've seen haters take out stonecutters in 15 minutes, and then you've seen stonecutters take out haters in 14 minutes when the lineups are reversed. So those games are kind of a toss-up. You don't really know what's going to happen, so it should be fun to watch, and it'll be great to see like the outcome. I think that for the most part, like, things would have to go completely sideways for the seeding to not work out the way everyone thinks it's going to go. But, anything could happen. I mean, if you get a black sheep double loss,
Yeah.
It could change things up.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Yep.
it could shake things up. And like you said, they are very top heavy. So, without, Sav and Jay in the lineup, who knows what's going to happen with them.
And I think that's where you could run into, apologies, I'm a pessimist. You could run into some sort of drama at that point where if they agree to play depth and they have like half of the depth lineup in, they go 0-2 and surrender their 1 seed right before playoffs. That team's not going to be happy that it worked out that way. So I do think it's genuinely good that everyone gets to play, but before there's the next season of any sort, keep the agreement going to where people can play, but figure out a way to where it's not maybe as impactful for the seedings. It's like, hey, we'll agree to have these scheduled matches, understanding that a lot of these people don't have the experience. They may not even understand the stakes. They just log in Sunday. It's like, hey, man, your turn to play. Like, get them in there. But for now, it is going to impact the seeding. So, good luck. These games still matter, even if it's not your 10 best players in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, like, if you compare squad to squad, like, for example, my squad to Matt's squad, if we're going to play that, like, if Axie's in, then Desi's in, and if Matt's in, then Welsh is in. You know what I mean? So we could like balance it out that way as
Welsh.
well. Yeah.
I
So
can't wait to see Welsh.
you can kind of balance it that way, and I think that where these squads, like every squad's played 5 games by the time it's over, that players should get to play enough times that it's not time is split up in a decent amount. It's 5 games, like 3 to 2 games, and you can fit people in where you can, and I think it'll work out and it'll be fine. But there's always ways to fix things and make things better too. Like you said, like in the future, I'm sure that we can figure out different ways to do it. Like maybe it's we're gonna play 3 this game and you play 3 this game and stuff like that, and get it all worked out for sure.
Yeah, and I'll credit you for once in your life. You did bring up a good point a few minutes ago. You talked about the activity and the scrims for these teams throughout the season. It's been unreal compared to other seasons. And I mean, I mentioned like we got to experience that a little bit in the OVD league because X5's team was nice enough to play with us for a couple weeks. But man, you guys are playing scrims, and not just your team, but like I'm saying, you guys as in the participating community, there's scrims like 3 nights a week on weeknights.
Yeah.
So it's cool that these unofficial games are happening. You're getting those chances to build the chemistry. Just make sure you utilize it. Like we definitely utilized ours in the OVD league. We had lessons learned coming out of the scrims. It's competitive out there. So keep that up. Hopefully we see that in future leagues. It's good for participation where, like you said, it's not just Sundays you can play. If people are available, jump online in the middle of the week. And I also like that it's public. There's not some big secret scrims happening for the most part. It's like, hey, you want to come see some squads compete? Come check it out. I love watching that stuff. Talked about it before, like just nerding out over the game. Having to spend time with Herth sucks, but I'll keep doing it.
I'm sorry. I hope you pass away peacefully.
Okay.
I think it's good for like the majority of the population too, because I know, like, for me, for example, if nothing's going on or if it's just an OVD and I don't want to play, I'm not logging in. But if you were to message me and be like, hey, Black Sheep Wall and Stonecutters are having a scrim right now in 10 minutes, I'm like, all right, I'm there, I'm going to watch. So, like, it's good for the population too, for the game, and it's good for, like, the people who want to just log in and not watch a random mix with, no coordination or anything. You want to watch an actual match. And like you said, I think for the most part, it's like practices are done privately and then scrims are done publicly, which is, what more can you ask for? I think that's the proper way to do it. I just want to say that before, it was just like one captain in previous seasons, and, they weren't as active. But now I think that the reason that it's better is because you have like 2 people. So, like, you got me and Jesse, you got Bonza and Tactical. So these people want to like play together more, so it's easier to get the team on, and you kind of work together, and you got one on offense, one on defense for the most part in most of these teams. And I think that like that helps bring the activity up too. You already start off with 2 active people who want to practice, who want to play, and then you pick your team from there, and you go in with an expectation that we're going to play, we're going to practice, we're going to try to get good, and we're going to try to win. And I think that that's one of the main reasons that everything is so active this season, and I hope it keeps going like that too.
And I think it's good for the population too that the scrims are also public, because when you go back in the day, kind of like before we even got into CTFPL, when we're just public noobs logging in, hoping to get lucky with a win on a public team in Twin Peaks or X or whatever, our entry into, I guess, organized play was you came in as a spectator and you would watch and you're like, okay, you kind of learn from that. Like, okay, this is completely different from public play. The classes used on both sides are different. People do this in different situations. They don't use these weapons. So for the players, because there are still some pub players out there like YKO or El Gordo or others, and some of them, not those specifically, but others have come in and they kind of see it, they learn, and then they kind of join the OVDs and they slowly assimilate into our community, as small as it is. But it is nice to see it grow by a few bodies here and there to kind of offset those that never come back, like Worth. I don't know where the hell he went, but we got to offset him with somebody.
What a way to look at it. So, on that note, shout out to Sergeant Ketchup, Solo Camo.
Yes.
These guys were pub people. I think they're both on Albert's squad, maybe?
Yep.
Man, I've played with
They are?
Ketchup and OVDs this season. Up and coming. You heard it here first. Ketchup.
Ketchup is very good. He's actually decent at infantry, too.
He takes good feedback. That's all I ask of people. If I PM you and I'm like, hey, can you try this? Don't say no, just do it. So Ketchup's cool about that.
Man, on the note of Ketchup, like in recent scrims that he's been in, I get him to 10-man infill, especially like if someone's holding flags, or if he's a heavy and we're at a 3DF base, I'll get him to switch to infill. And this guy takes leadership like really well. You only got to ask him to do something once, even when he's a heavy. Like if I'm like, let's just say we drop an infantry or two on the way to boxes, I'll be like, Ketchup, just set up right away, go through the sentries and do this, or go down bottom and take the bottom MG. We got 2 imps down. He just does it. He doesn't, question it. And if I'm like, Ketchup, RT's about to come, he'll just move. Like he just listens. Especially infill reps. Like, man, he's good, and he has no problem listening and learning. And I think he wants to get good, and he's proven it. He's doing great.
He's gonna sneak into that Chompy realm before you know it. Shout out Chompy, miss you, big dog.
I hope so, man, because it's good to see, and I think that like when other people see that, like, oh, okay, Ketchup, this pub guy is, Mr. Gohan pub guy. They're coming in, they're doing good, they're now starting on these squads. They're getting picked earlier. I can do that too, and I want to do that. So like, hopefully they, start buying into it and get involved in more of the competitive scene, because yeah, pub happens, but competitive play is where it's at for this game right now. We all know that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's helping the new influx of these pub players is knowing that every league that goes by, unless he's captaining, our user's going to keep sliding down the draft board. So you can slide up the draft board the next season. So shout out to him for contributing in that way and giving others a chance to really shine as they should.
Do you think that's why he captains?
It's got to be the reason. His ego can't take knowing that he'd be drafted like 59th overall. So he's just been captaining lately.
Oh, man, too funny. All right, so what do you guys hope to see more of going forward, like this week, playoffs, and even like, future seasons of DL?
Yeah, again, I'll keep it simple and just pick one. For me, I want to see more consistency out of the offense on Bonza's team. It's the one offense where I've done all this VOD review and stuff. I just can't find a game where like, wow, this offense really has it together, except for that depth game, which is a little invalidated because like we said, there's depth, it's different. Like I want to see that starting offense, which is full of talent, figure something out, whether it's conforming to the meta or creating their own deviation and mastering it, if you will. Like I want to see this offense look better before the season ends. So that's the number one thing I'd like to see.
I think the number one thing I want to see is more consistency on the 10-mans for all these squads. You can instantly tell, hey, these squads know what they're doing on 10-man because they have the 2 infill swap pretty quick. One's in the front, one's in the back. they're pushing out with their infills. And then you see the other squads where, the substitutions are delayed. They're just going in haphazardly, rushing in. It's really a shame to see because some squads they're holding on for so long, and they get to the 10-man, and it's the quickest 90 seconds of their life.
That's true. You see a lot of these long games. It's like, oh, they did it. Then the 10-man starts. It's like, what do they do it for? Like they just blew it.
They just threw it away, and as someone that's been on the other side of that a few times, it is so demoralizing, especially when you're offensive member. You're like, we finally did it. We broke them down, and then you lose in 90 seconds.
One more thing, less game focusing, more like meta or above macro level intake of the game and competitive leagues that I'd like to see. I think after this league ends, have some sort of like a retrospective with the people who are saying they did not have a good time. Because I think last season, we just see it on the Discord. It just comes out as fodder from different individuals saying, "Oh, this was garbage. I didn't get to play," or "Stack teams are bad." If you had a bad time and you're listening to this, tell people why. Tell the admins why, or tell your captains why. Because without that feedback, like they can't make it any better. So I think most teams are having a good time. It's only 4 teams right now. A lot of people are getting play time. It's not uber trash talky like it has been. It's looked pretty healthy to me as an outsider. But if you're not having a good time in this league, just like tell someone after the league's over, and the Shadow Council, whoever we're comprised of, they'll take the feedback and do something with it. So just throw it out there.
I agree. There's a lot of the upper management, so to speak, in this game.
Upper management?
Hey, look, it's kind of the business I'm in, so that's the terms I'm going to use.
Shadow Council.
Shadow Council. They're easily accessible in game. Usually more than happy to help. I mean, you've got players like Albert, CMN, Wolven, Soup. I'm not saying they're part of the Shadow Council. We don't name names around here, but I'm just saying these are players that they have a pretty large voice. Usually, their opinions are taken at face value, and they can push their agenda along. And then you've got people like Axis, who's more than happy to make changes to the game how we need, or Joe, he makes things better or worse.
Mainly worse.
Yeah. But the point is, like you said, Kelps, just get your thoughts and opinions out there. Don't hold them to yourself. Even if nothing happens with it, which I doubt it would, at least you get it out there. And there's probably going to be others that might feel the same way. And until we hear about it, no change can be made.
Yeah, and I think one of our guys, like Andrew, who none of us can stand, he posted something in suggestions recently. And it was like, hey, what do you guys want to play next season? Is it OVD League? Is it the Draft League? I think that's a cool question to ask, but more people need to participate in that, because if the community is still composed of what looks to be around 70 to 80 people, given attendance and whatnot on certain nights, we need more than, 10 or 12 people giving feedback on that. Because if a few people want to do an OVD league and a few people want to do a draft league, like the other people who didn't voice up their concerns, they're going to be the ones banging on the table saying, why you're wasting our time with this. So just get a little more involved with the community. Take 30 seconds out of your day to say, like, put it somewhere in a suggestion thread or just in the general Discord, or talk to your captain about, this is what I'd like to do. I think this would make the league better. Just throw it out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like for the most part, the major complaints have been getting worked through. Like, I think, we now have more bases with more variety, so people can play different styles or have, fun in different areas. It's not just A7, D7. Things have been, getting updated for quality of life. This season we're playing so many depth games. Like, I think 3 of the 5 games that we're playing in the regular season have been depth games. So, people are not getting played anymore. So that complaint is getting addressed and fixed. So if we don't know about them, like, obviously if, Matt pisses you off and there's nothing that we could do about that, you just got to ignore him or something. But if there's like, game mechanics or just like the way things are set up or something that we can make better, bring it up. We'll do our best to do it. And I think that we've proved that we have been trying to do that as well. And, we'll do what we can to make everybody happy, which you can never do, but we can try.
Yep. And I just want to point out before you move on, Albert kept saying we because he is a member of the Shadow Council. So that is out in the public.
I just meant like us 3.
We're not affiliated with any of that sort.
If you're really, dissatisfied with the Shadow Council, just message me on Discord. I'll give you Albert's home address, and then you can send your personal complaints straight to him.
You're such a good dude. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to toss in?
Just a reminder that I hate doing this, but hey, good to talk to everyone.
Just a reminder that I'm also glad that both of you have the flu, and I hope it descends into pneumonia and something worse.
It already has.
Yeah, we might not be here next week, so it's
Good
been
luck,
great
Kurt.
doing this for you guys. But no, with that, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Like I said, we're going to try to do another one after Sunday's games, and hopefully another one after playoffs, and just talk about like what to expect in the future, if anything of, you know, CTF, whether it's OVDL or Draft League. We'll try to figure it out in the next couple weeks, and give you guys, you know, the up-to-date information. But as always, hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be back again, and thank you, Kelby and Herth, once again for coming on and doing this. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Cheers. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, guys, with the games.